a photo of this. This is awesome. Okay. I'm going to start with a law, Mr. Meyer. So often we hear today directors and writers, not only in the Star Trek franchise, but in other franchises say, you know, I'm going to make the Wrath of Khan of, you know, the Superman franchise, or this is going to be just as good as Wrath of Khan. It's like this new standard of the ultimate sequel. You know. So the question is, you know, what do you think it is about this movie? And, you know, when you were making it, did you even realize that, you know, how good of something you were making, I guess?
First of all, thank you very much for coming out here. It is a real smiley treat to see you. Before I even answer this question, to which I don't know the answer, I would like to point out that the movie that is normally playing here, Coco and Igor, which I saw this afternoon, is absolutely fantastic. It's the best movie I've seen in a long time. So I didn't even know that Coco Chanel and Igor Stravinsky had an affair, so it shows you where I... Anyway, you get a chance to see it. In my opinion, movies are like souffles. They either rise or they don't, and nobody much knows why. There may be expert souffle makers, but the ingredients of each movie changes. There are so many variables, from the screenplay to the casting, to the director, to the budget, to the weather, that the idea that something comes out wonderful. I had a friend, he was actually the editor on this film, Bill Dornish, who had a production company called Miracle Pictures. And their sobriquet was, if it's a good picture, it's a miracle.
So, back in 1982, when this film was made, there really weren't a lot of sequels. And so, even though this film is held up as a standard, what were your influences? What were the kind of films you were looking at when you were making Wrath of Khan?
Well, I probably didn't think of it as a sequel anyway, because I was out to lunch or something. I just thought of it as it. If anything, it was a sequel of sorts to the episode on television, not the first movie, called Space Seed, where Montalban plays Khan for the first time. It's always curious to ask people what are their influences, because you may not know, you may not be consciously aware, A, of things that have influenced you. You may have absorbed them on a kind of unconscious level from a very early age. Or B, you may want to say publicly things that sound cool, you know, Alain Resnais was a big influence on me. My dad said that last year at Marienbad went from Marienbad to worse. Okay, never mind. I had never seen a lot of Star Trek movies or the television show, so I didn't really have that too much as a frame of reference. What I did think as they were showing me the episodes that they showed me in the first movie, and I thought, well, this does remind me of something that I really like. And it was a whole series of novels that I read as a kid by C.S. Forester, the man who wrote The African Queen. He wrote a series of novels called The Adventures of Captain Horatio Hornblower, which was an English sea captain during the Napoleonic Wars, and he had lots of adventures and a girl in every port. It sounded pretty good. And I thought, okay, this is Hornblower in outer space. This is a movie about the Navy. This is a movie about destroyers. This is a movie about submarines. And if I were that's an influence of which I was consciously aware. That's what I was aware of, that I was deliberately being influenced by. And the Enterprise was going to have a noise, because ships make a noise unless they're sailboats. And other stuff like that was very important to me. The other Robert Wise movie that was probably a bigger influence than the first Star Trek movie. I mean, the first Star Trek movie was an influence in a special way. We can talk about it later if you like. But it was another Robert Wise picture called Run Silent, Run Deep with Clark Gable, which was a submarine movie. And that one and The Enemy Below, I think, were things that influenced me that important.
You talk about in your book, which I have a copy of here, The View from the Bridge, available now in hardcover and in paperback in August from Viking Press, about the process of writing this film. And it went through kind of an unusual process. There was multiple drafts, and eventually you just said, screw it, I'm going to write the thing. And, but you weren't credited as the writer. And do you think that you just kind of went around the WGA rules and said, I'm going to write it? Do you think that kind of seat of the pants process could happen on a, tentpole blockbuster movie today?
Well, I don't really know how they make tentpole blockbuster movies today. Most of the time, they fail to excite my interest, so not having seen them, I'm even less interested in how they were put together. It seems to me sort of an assembly line, somewhat mechanical process in which nothing is left to the imagination. And the thing that I find most troubling about Hollywood blockbusters, as the ones I've seen that got me sort of turned off, was I thought nobody connected with this movie, whatever the movie is, has any real interest in or belief in the story. I don't care. The story is just some kind of mechanical exercise in which the car blows up. And I didn't give a fuck about that. So I can't really tell you. When I directed this movie, it was the second movie I had directed, and I guess I put together the screenplay from these other drafts, or really story ideas I took, because the dialogue is basically mine. Because there wasn't going to be any movie if I didn't do it, and I wasn't going to waste any time. They said by the time they made my deal, but I should back up and say that I was hired to direct this movie, and a draft of the script, draft 5, was supposed to come in, and everything was going to be Jake. And then the draft came in and it wasn't any good, and so forth. And when I was saying, well, what do we do? And they said, well, there's nothing we can do because the movie is already booked into theaters. And I was so dumb I didn't know that was done. So the movie is booked into theaters. There's no movie. Anyway, so under those circumstances, I thought, well, we cannot just sit around. Somebody has to grab the reins and do this. And I didn't worry about the rules, and maybe I should have. Maybe I should have.